Now, sometimes we may want to print the data without headers. For example, when printing the rows of data from the reader object, we may not want to include day, opening price, and closing price. Now, in that case, we can use a function called next to skip an iteration. So let's see how this works. Let's comment line 6 and 7, and let's include a next function and put the reader object inside the next function. Okay, now we can print the next function on the reader object to see what is the return output. And let's execute the code. So from the output, we can see that the next function on the reader object would return the headers. Now, in other words, the next function will skip this first item and return the next item from the reader object. So let's remove the print function so that we can use the next function directly. And let's uncomment outline number 7 and 8 and execute the code. So from the output, we can see that the next function on the reader object have skipped the headers, and then in the for loop will simply print from the second item or the second row of data onwards. Now note that the next function only works with objects like a reader object, and it does not work with an iterable object like a list, tuple, or dictionary. Now to demonstrate this point, let's create a variable that contains a list of numbers, say 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And let's use the next function on this list, which is an iterable object. And I'm simply highlighting 9, 10, and 11 to execute the code. Now from the return output, we can see that Python returned a type error exception and says that list object is not an iterator. Now in other words, there is a difference between an iterator and an iterable object in Python. Now it is beyond the scope of this module to discuss the difference. However, it is worthy to note that next function only works in certain object, namely an iterator object. So the reader object created in line 5 is really an iterator in Python.